let's just start right away. So I'd like everybody to start a brand new Visual Studio project, please. All right, so we're here. I'm going to create a new project. All right, and I'd like you to choose Console App.NET Framework. All right, so start up a new project. Under the Create a New Project, we want Console App.NET Framework. C#, of course. All right. Again, you don't want the one that says .NET Core. That's the latest and greatest. That's got a lot of stuff we haven't talked about yet. We want the .NET Framework. All right. Click Next. I'm going to call this Employee Array. One with a big E and a big A. Just like that. And I'm going to save it, in my case, again, to my desktop. All right, so Employee Array. What we will do on Thursday and Fridays, we're going to start with this, but we're going to create Employee Array List. All right, we'll talk about that at that time. I don't want to talk about it at all right now. So this should say Employee Array. Save it where you normally save things. This should say Employee Array. And click Create. Remember that when we do this, for lack of better words, not very grand or glorious. In other words, looks like this. This is our whole file. All right? And we're going to go down to the bottom of our using statements. So I'm going to add our using static system.console. And again, if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. Look on the screen, please. Since we have this line right here, that would mean that rather than just saying read line or write line, you have to say console.readline, console.writeline. That's what it's just a little less typing we have to do. That's all. All right. I don't need any of these. You know, they'll have some in here that they'll say we don't need. You want to get rid of them? Sure. So really, well, that was interesting. Yeah, I don't want to do that because I got rid of everything. So I'm just leaving there for now. And I'd like you to go right up above where it says class program, right up above that. All right, and then don't add anything but other than a blank line right there. Then go to the email that I sent you and grab all of it. I mean, all of the stuff that's in the comment here, everything. It's all in blue. At least for me it is. It probably isn't for you. All right, but copy all of it to the clipboard and then paste it in. Now, it might be ugly. You might get errors. Don't worry about any of that. All right, in fact, now that I think about it, we're going to get errors. All right, let's fix those errors first because that would be nice. The only thing we really want inside of where we are right now is this, just the comment. So grab all the code where it starts here with constants, grab all that code and all this code, cut it, and paste it in right up above main. Right up above main. Then all the errors go away. Now, if I did that too fast, let's go back and look at it again. All right? So what we have here, right under our namespace, is starting just our comment. It says, note for this example, each employee has the following attributes. So we're assuming that each employee has a first name, a last name, an ID number, and a department. All of those are strings. Even though for the employee number, typically it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we could do all sorts of stuff. We could set it up so the employee number had to be digits and had to be 0 through 9, etc. I'm not doing any of that. Why? Because that's not what this assignment or this practice thing is about. All right? And then we've got 3 doubles. Hours worked, hourly rate, and gross pay. Now, one thing about arrays, you know this already. I mentioned to you a lot earlier in the semester that arrays are what are called, they're basically, they're early binded. So in other words, when you compile the program, the system has to know how big the array is. All right, so I'm assuming we have 5 employees. We could make it 100, but did you really want to type in stuff for 100 employees? I didn't think you would. All right, and if that's too much, just make it 2 or 3. You can do that too if you want to. That's no big thing. I'm also assuming, and you've seen this before, that the hours worked are between 0 and 84, and these are just numbers I made up. So if you say, no, everybody's got to be paid, we could have made that 10, etc. If we have a CEO, maybe they get $1,000 an hour. You get the idea, right? So we could change that any way we want to or need to change that. All right? Then, down here, all right, I've got the constants. Look at these constants and tell me, because I am asking you, is there anything that's in these constants that does not make sense? Anything? All right. Notice I did put in defaults. All right. Why? Because I didn't want to screw around with if you put in something that's non-numeric or if you put in something that's out of range, then I'm going to keep you in there until you put in something. You're bad girl. You're bad boy. I don't want to do that. So I just said if you either put in something that was non-numeric or you put in something less than 0 or you put something greater than 84, I just set it to a default of 40. Okay? And I did the same thing with the rate. And what you'll notice when you look on here is that hours are doubles. Why? Because with hours, we're not dealing with money. All right? But with rate, we're dealing with money. See that? Decimal, that M on there technically stands for money. All right? If you go through Microsoft's stuff, maybe it really means something else, but that's what they claim. It means money. And you might say, who cares? If you've ever done this, years ago, I'm just going to make this real short and sweet. Years ago at the school I used to teach at, they used to make people take a class called business statistics. You had to take a statistics class. In that class, at the end of the class, you had to go and create basically a loan amortization program. You all know what that is. It's like if you buy a car, that when you buy a car or a house, the first few years you're paying the most stuff on the interest and very little on principal. Then in the end, you're paying all on principal and little on interest. That kind of an idea. Okay, and you could make this loan amortization program out of anything you wanted. If you knew a programming language, you could use that. If you wanted to do it, because it's actually not that hard to do in Excel, you could do that. You could do it in anything you wanted. All right, so why am I telling you this? Well, the guy who taught the class, 75% of the people who were in there were also in a beginning programming class with him. That beginning programming class was in a language that's called COBOL. And COBOL is still around, but it's about 60 years old now, the language. All right, there's not that much from IT that was around 60 years ago that's still there. But the last number I heard, and I'm not sure how true this is, there are still 6 trillion lines of COBOL out there. So it's not going to go away soon. The point is, the students who were in his class, he asked them to try to write this loan amortization program in COBOL. Okay? COBOL is what's known as a very verbose or wordy language. To do a simple program, print your name maybe on the screen. About 100 lines of code. All right? Because there's a bunch of stuff you have to set up. All right? But it's a very exact language. So in other words, it told you to the penny what you would owe. All right, then Mr. Smartass comes in here after that guy had been teaching that class for years. All right, and we start to transition away from COBOL because most of the businesses in the area aren't using it anymore for new development. They're using other languages, such as C, which I knew. So I come in there and I teach people basically the equivalent of how to do this program, but do it in C. So who cares? Well, the program they did in COBOL was literally about 600 lines long. The program we did in C was about 60 lines long. All right, so you can kind of see why it was easier to do it that way. The problem was, when you did it in C, your last payment was off by about 3 cents. And you might think, well, that's no big thing. If you're a bank, it's a big thing. All right, my first car, No joke, but it's a good tie-in. My first car, I paid it off, and I got a postcard, which at that time they were a nickel, but a postcard from the bank saying that I still owed 3 cents on my car. They weren't going to release the title until I paid that 3 cents. Could I please come in as soon as possible and pay my 3 cents? Again, I found it funny. They spent 5 cents to tell me I owed them 3 cents. All right, but it's okay. I understood. So I went in there, and the lady's like, "You got the 3 cents?" I said, "Yeah." So, of course, again, smart ass, I pulled out my checkbook, and I wrote him a check for 3 cents. All right? She didn't like that at all. She's like, "You don't have any pennies?" "No, I don't have anything with me. You want this or not?" All right? But the point is, the guy who taught the class in COBOL said, "Look, mine is exact." And I said, "Yeah, and yours is also 10 times more code." So we had to account for that. But C didn't have a way for accounting for the intricacies of when you go back and forth, between doubles, etc., where COBOL did. Well, the idea with using decimal is it's supposed to be as exact as it can possibly be. All right? All right, now it was a long story, but it's just so you are aware of that. So we've also got in here, 40 is the most number of hours you can work without getting overtime, and your overtime rate is time and a half. Does everybody get that? Are there any questions on that?
So when I go to some console, it always comes up with Net 4 or Net Framework.
You want that framework?
So both of them.
And again, you'll notice if you look over here, you do have comments. There's not a ton of comments we're putting in here. It's already, I don't remember how many lines this is because I've got it done already. It's about 250 lines. All right? So, again, anything in here that you don't get. All right. Then when you look, because this is pretty darn ugly, we have how many things of information about each person? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So each person has a first name, each person has a last name, etc. So we made an array for each one of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there will be 5 first names, 5 last names, 5 ID numbers, 5 departments, 5 hours worked, 5 hourly rates, and 5 gross pays. Does all that make sense? All right. Now, if you are working for a company, and let's say that you're creating this payroll system, you're never going to have to worry about any of this kind of stuff because you're never typing in input like we're doing anyway. They've got data entry people to do that. That's their job. And typically what will happen is you'll be grabbing that information from a database. That's what I want us to do at the end of the semester. All right. So we've got this, a first name. Okay, we've got an array of strings called first name, an array of strings called last name, an array of strings called ID number, an array of strings called department, an array of doubles called hours worked, an array of decimals called hourly rate, and an array of decimals called gross pay. All right, then we're also going to figure out of these 5 employees who got paid the most, who got paid the least, what was the average payment, and what was the total payment. Does all that make sense?
It makes sense, but on the lowest paid,
Yeah.
how'd you?
Okay, that's a very good question. I am gonna. You don't have to do this, but because I'm anal, I'm going to flip those. Why am I flipping these 2 right here? Because I actually. Oops. Okay, maybe I don't have to. Which one was first? Yeah, I want. There, I want them like that because I'm going to do total before I do average. Okay, good question. The question was, all right, for the highest paid, why is that 0? And why is the lowest paid $26,501.01? If I did my math right, okay, the person who makes the most money, the most that you can possibly make is $250 an hour. The most hours they can work is 84. If I did my math right, when you figure all that out, you give them their overtime, the most somebody can make is $26,500. So now I can be sure that right in here, that the first time I bring in somebody, they'll automatically become the lowest paid. All right, and I didn't do this, but probably I should have changed this one. The highest paid, I probably should have made that -1. You can do that if you want. You can leave it at 0. It's your call. All right. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. The total paid and the average paid, they haven't been calculated yet. I'm just leaving those at 0. All right. The funny thing is, I kept doing this. I kept being real anal and taking all these and making them so they all lined up. And I'm feeling better now. So I did all that. But then when you get out and you get back in again, it removes all that stuff you just put in. So I said, finally, after a while, I just said, the heck with it. All right. So the only thing we've got in here, unless you're different than mine is we got main. Okay? Is that where you are? All right. So let's start. The good news is we've already got about 20% of the program in here. All right? And like I said, not a lot of comments, but there will be some in here. Do you have to put in the comments? That's up to you. But usually before I started any routine, I put in a comment just to explain in a sentence what the routine is doing. That's all. All right. Main is going to call 2 routines. And you're going to get error messages on both these because we didn't write them yet. All right. So it's going to call set employee payroll info, and then it's going to call get employee payroll info. All right. Now, what's the difference between these? On right here, whatever we want to have a value will be on the left-hand side of an equal sign. We are going to be setting its value. Over here, whatever we want will basically be on the right-hand side of an equal sign. We're going to be grabbing its value. All right? So, if you can imagine, just pretend for a second, I'm a teacher, but I'm also a calculator. All right? And I say, Angie, what is 7 plus 6? And you come back and you go, well, you already did it right there, and I'm reading from the calculator. It says 13. Then you are getting that answer. All right? But on the other hand, when I'm figuring out the answer, then I'm setting the answer. All right? The reason I'm telling you that is when you get all the way into your 3rd and 4th semester, and in fact, really next week, we're going to start working with classes, and guess what we're going to be working with? 2 things. They're both known as properties. Some are known as getters, and some are known as setters. So I figured, why not call these set and get? So you can start understanding what they are, how they're used, etc. All right. Now, if this bugs the heck out of you and you're like, I don't like that, you can always comment these out. Then those errors go away. All right. Then you can uncomment them again once we write the routines. Just remember that if you do comment them out, to uncomment them when we get going. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to write this set routine. So you don't have to use the word private, but I am anyway. Private static void set employee payroll info. Now notice, please look on the screen. You notice how that went away, that error? I've got one down here now, and I've got one down here because I haven't put in the curly braces yet. Now they're both gone. All right? Now, if this is really bugging you, then right below this, let's just put in private static void get employee payroll info. Now there are no errors. All right, was that big a thing? Not at all. But like I said, I know I have worked with students, I have worked with programmers who can't stand seeing the red stuff on their screen. So if that's the case, then just do it like that. All right. So I'm going to come in here now, and remember, I am going to basically come in here for all these people. I'm going to set their hours, etc. All right. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make a couple variables in here. When I make variables outside of any routine, like these, they're known as global. They can be used anywhere in the program. We don't have to pass them around like we've passed around some stuff. If I make variables that are in here, that are in a routine, they're known as local. So I do have to pass them around if I want them to go to another routine. All right, I'm going to make two variables here. They're both going to be double. No, I'm sorry. One's going to be a double and it's going to be hours. One is going to be a decimal and it's going to be rate. And you'll even notice here when you look, I'm not with either one of them. I'm not initializing them. I could if I wanted to. Well, then all you need is this. It's what? Then it's probably not that. Oh, it's this is my program statement at the top. You need that line up at right after your comment here. You need this where it says class program and you've got a curly brace after it. That's got to be before your constants and all your other stuff. If you put that in, the error should go away. If it still doesn't, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out during the break then. All right. So we've got these two variables. They're local variables. They don't have values. We don't want to try to print them out now. If you try to print out the value of a local variable that hasn't been set, its value is null. Null means unknown. If you try to print out null, you're going to get one of those exception errors, right? Because it doesn't know what it's doing. All right, so what we want to do is for all 5 people, we want to input their first name, then we want to input their last name, then we want to input their ID number, then we want to input their department, then we want to input their hours worked, then we want to input their hourly rate, or vice versa, I don't remember what it is, then we want to do their gross pay. Does that make sense? Okay, and we're going to do that for each employee. Boom, do those 7 things, go to the next employee. Boom, those 7 things, go to the next employee. So we're going to do that 5 times. All right, so the easiest way to do that is to put it into a loop. So we're going to say for int LCV equals 0. LCV is less than, now that max size was one of those constants we put in earlier, just so you know. All right, it was a constant that we put in earlier. It's 5. All right, it's the length, if you look up here, it's the length of every array. See that? All right. It means that every array is going to have 5 things in it. That's exactly what it means. All that tells you is that is the size of that. All right. Okay. So for each array element, we want to set its first name, then its last name, etc. We're going to, for each one of those, we're going to write our own routine for each one. The routines don't exist, so you're going to have a lot of red squiggly lines for a couple minutes. All right, so we're going to say here, first name, LCV, equals input first name, and we're going to pass LCV to it. Please look up on the screen here. These are brackets. See these? Those are brackets. These are parentheses. Don't make those brackets or this won't work. All right, I'm going to cheat here. So, there we go. I'm just going to come in here and just change all of these. Next was ID number. If you've done all this and you put it in, if you put it in correctly, you should not have errors here. There should be no errors to the left of the equal sign, but you should have a bunch of them to the right of the equal sign. Don't let that bother you if you've got that. It's totally fine.
The hours worked, did you have one with the hours?
That's a good question. The what? Oh, then we'll have to fix that. Well, now neither one of them have it. All right. Each one of these things here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Each one of these 7 things is going to be a routine. All right? Each one of these routines needs to know which employee it is. So imagine it's us. All right? And we'll just go around the room. You're employee 0, you're employee 1, I'm employee 2, you're employee 3, you're employee 4. So that means the first time through the LCV will be 0. The last time through LCV will be 4. Does that make sense? You may say, why isn't it 1 to 5? Because computers start counting at 0. All right? Now, the brackets here mean 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's what array element it is. The actual number itself, not what element, just what number it is, that's this. All right? But you look and you go, wait a minute, well then why does this one have brackets again? And it does. Because notice it's hours worked and it's hourly rate. So we are passing in that person's hours worked and that person's hourly rate. This is just passing, all of these are just passing in a 0, a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. All right? These are actually passing in that person's hours and that person's rate. All right? I can't say it any other way. Okay? Now, so this is going to handle our inputting. So what's left when we get done will be to do our outputting. All right? And what are we outputting? Well, we're out. This stuff is going to be covered. But remember these things? We don't want to do those things until we're all done. Imagine you had 1 million employees. If I was doing the highest paid and lowest paid and total paid and average paid, if I was doing them every time I put in an employee, that'd be doing it 1 million times. That would be stupid. I only want to do it once. So when I'm all done with this for loop here, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to call set lowest paid, set highest paid, set total paid, and set AWD paid. Couple things about these, just so you know. You know they're red, and you know why they're red, because we haven't written them yet. But also, none of these routines require any additional information. That's why we have paren, paren. Okay? In other words, these 4 lines that you see in blue right there, those 4 lines are calling routines, but are not passing anything into the routines. Does that make sense? Okay. And the return type on each one of these will be void. It's not returning anything. But look up here. That's going to return a string. That's going to return a string. That's going to return a string. That's going to return a string.